Welcome,
Welcome.
Housewives of True Crime.
Up in here.
Up in here, up in here. We have a very special show today.
We do.
We're taking a little bit of a different turn on things because we're not going to tell you a case. We're going to actually not tell you, somebody else is going to tell you about her life, and her name is Tania Bales, like Hale Bales.
Yeah.
Hale Bales? Hay Bales.
Tania is a lovely woman, total disco biscuit badass, who was married to John Meehan, aka Dirty John, for 10 years. And her
Dude.
story is really fascinating.
Yeah.
I love talking to her. I thought it was really interesting hearing her story, how he was able to kind of keep this. I don't think she liked the word con,
She
but
didn't like the word con man because she
I don't
thinks
know
he's
I don't
more
know
than
what
that.
other word to describe. Facade, maybe, this facade of who he was up really for 10 years, and then in a minute, it just snapped.
Dude, could you imagine, by the way, being married for 10 years to somebody like a fake? So you know how on Dirty John, like I say this in the thing, like the one thing I remember is he was so attentive to Deborah, right?
Right.
His girlfriend at the time. Like he would wake up in the morning and do shit for her and bring her coffee and just be like, "Oh my God," like like your dream man. But he wasn't a dream man, right? He was like a psychotic, crazy person. But years of that with Tania, right? So she was like, it was just like a normal marriage, which to me, it's like, dude, how does he wake up every day and just do the like routine?
Well, it sounds like in her podcast, we're gonna kind of learn about that because she explores it with a psychologist who's really gonna explain his scumbag psyche.
Yeah. Scary that there's people out there like that, by the way.
You know, Tab, there are more than you know.
Well, hopefully we're not married to any of them.
Well, I don't think we're married. I don't think we're married to any.
I'm just kidding.
I
My
mean,
husband's
they're not
amazing.
trying to impress us with smoothies
Oh
or
yeah,
anything.
no. Actually,
no, they're
actually I
not.
was just having like a major headache because my house is like sometimes my husband's really good and he makes my kids lunch or dinner, rarely dinner, but sometimes lunch. And then there's 5,000 dishes
Yeah.
everywhere
Right.
for macaroni and cheese. I'm like, that's a one pot thing. How do we have
My gosh. My
20?
husband is always like, I was going to make another sandwich.
Oh, and that's
Don't
why all
put
the
that
stuff is
away.
still out? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. That too.
It's like, you could still put it away and take it out again.
Yeah. It's too hard.
The mind of the male and female, we work differently.
Different. It definitely is different for sure. Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty incredible. 10 years. I think you do know somebody after 10 years, you would think, but I guess you sometimes don't.
Well, we've both been married for about 13 years. Plus
14,
dating.
girlfriend. Didn't we just get our 14-year anniversary?
13.
No.
Can you do math? We got married in 2008 and our anniversary was in
God.
It's
Okay,
2021.
So my cat's only 13 years old then.
Okay.
I got my cat, you guys, the year that I got married, and my little cat, you guys all know, is not so healthy, and now they think she has
Going in for
cancer.
exploratory surgery, cha-ching. I'm thinking the cat's pretty old, maybe time to go to kitty heaven. Tabitha
Now the cat's
disagrees.
only a year younger than I thought she was.
Yeah. I'm sorry I brought it up.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Gretchen's, you're not nice.
I'm ruthless.
You
I
are
guess.
ruthless. She's like, wait, you're paying how much to put your cat to sleep? I mean, dude, that's what John Meehan did. He did the
And
What is it
he
called?
was an anesthetist.
Anesthetist.
Yeah,
That's
not a
a hard
doctor,
word.
like he said. I know. Tanya had us practice.
She did have us practice
I
before we
know,
started.
which was
A
awesome.
and then I was like, "It's not a comptroller?" She's
True.
she's very professional lady.
Sh Yes, she is. So that was awesome. Tell us what you think, guys, after this. Do you like having the mixing it up, having the guests? We could do more of that.
We could do more of that. It's like a summer kind of bonus
Yeah,
because actually Gretchen and I are somewhere, probably not at our houses
yeah.
at the moment. We are on a
I'm at
lake.
Lake Tahoe. I'm not that mysterious. I don't know what your gig is.
No,
Kat's
because
at a
I don't
lake in
really know. I don't
Texas.
really know where. Oh, well,
Oh,
I don't really know where we are at the moment because we recorded this so early. But okay, so you're going to be at Lake Tahoe, and I'm going to
mhm.
be at either San Antonio, Cinnamon Shores, or Possum Kingdom. I don't know. One of those, because those are
One
the
of
three
those.
places I'm going next. Okay, so anyways, here is Tanya.
Tanya, clink, clink, enjoy.
Clink, clink. Tanya Bales, welcome to the show.
Hey
Welcome.
guys, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah,
Well,
thanks
thanks for
for being
coming on.
here.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who are not familiar or need a reminder of who John Meehan, Tanya's first husband, aka Dirty John, he was a man with a history of conniving women by acting the part of their ideal partner while manipulating them out of money, everything. When they caught on to him, he became their worst nightmare in the form of threatening and stalking them. In the case of Deborah Newell, a successful interior designer with grown children in Newport Beach, her 2-year relationship with John ended with John attacking her daughter Tara with a knife, which resulted in Tara taking control of the knife during the struggle and killing him, which subsequently ended his reign of terror over the trail of victims he had made throughout his life. The LA Times produced a podcast revolving around primarily Deborah's story, which is how John Meehan came onto our radar. But
That's
our
right.
guest played a huge role in John's life. She was his first wife, and they were married for 10 years and had children together. So, again, welcome, Tanya.
Yeah, welcome, Tanya. And Tanya, 10 years. We want to hear all about it.
Yeah, from the beginning. So, before we get started, Tanya has a new podcast.
She does. It's called The First Wife, John Meehan's Reign of Terror.
And tell us, Tanya, what kind of things are you going to explore?
Well, we're going to explore a lot. How much time do you have on this show?
I got time.
You've got time. Well, basically, my podcast is going to take a really deep dive into many relationships that John had over his life with women and with some men. John wasn't just able to con women, which maybe you might get from watching the Dirty John or listening to Dirty
Right.
John. He also fooled many men in his life. So we're gonna hear from people we've never heard from before,
Wow.
and
Interesting.
actually people I had never talked to in the last 25 years who I contacted. So I learn a lot in this podcast too, right along with you.
That's
Okay.
amazing.
That sounds great. So, tell us about you married John in 1988 after a year of dating.
Well, I
Looking
met John
back,
in 88.
you met John in 88.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was that like? Did you throughout your marriage to him, did he have like a hot temper, or was there anything?
No.
He kept the con kind of going all the time, just even keeled.
Yes,
He
yes. I
sounds
mean,
dreamier than my husband.
well, I mean, I thought we had a good marriage. I'm not going to deny there weren't some red flags along the way. There were some, and you're going to hear about those. You're going to hear
Okay.
about the night we met, and the con starts there on the
So
night we met.
he conned you right away.
Yes.
I'm kind of imagining that maybe he did similar things. Like when you hear Deborah's story, he used the word soulmates. I mean, all of those things are like the things that make our hearts just
Oh,
pitter
yeah.
patter, right?
Yes, he had his lines.
Yeah.
Another one was he would tell women, "I can't wait till, to kiss the first tear of our baby together." And
Oh
Oh
my
my God.
gosh.
yeah.
Yeah, that would do
hmm
it.
Wouldn't that do it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in hindsight, there are many red flags, but he was that guy who could talk you out of believing what you were feeling.
Hmm.
Sure.
hmm
Let me
Eh,
ask you, you had children with them. You have two girls, correct?
Yes, I have two girls.
Beautiful.
They're now 21 and 26.
Yeah, beautiful girls. And once you got divorced from John, did they continue a relationship with him?
So they did. They had visits with him. Of course, John had a lot on his plate then because he was starting to spiral and lose his career as a nurse anesthetist. So
Hmm.
he was having to, always choose himself and choose his problems over his children. And then, of course, he goes to prison. And when he comes out, he has supervised visitation. And so you're going to hear all about that. You're going to hear about the supervised visits, and you're actually going to hear never before heard conversations that I recorded between him and my children when they
Oh,
were
no
5 and 9.
way.
Oh.
Yes.
Wow. And so how old were your children when you did split?
Abby was not even a year, and Emily was turning 5.
Okay.
And what a lot of people think is that I learned all this information and I left him. No, he left me because he was leading a double life with a woman in Michigan. And
Oh,
so it wasn't
Interesting.
until I had just had a baby, I thought our marriage was fine. I thought he was who he said he was. But him asking me for a divorce let all of those things that had kind of built up, all of those little red flags started coming up to the top. And I'm like, I'm going to call his mom, who I'd never met. Okay, there's a red flag.
yeah.
Yeah. So this woman in Michigan, are we going to hear more about her on the podcast? And did you find out about that after he left you? You found out that that was it, or did you find out about her years later?
Well, when he left me, I started snooping by calling his mom, by searching his office, and I ended up actually talking to his boss, one of the anesthesiologists in Michigan, and he basically spilled it all on John. And so I knew during our separation that there was another woman.
Wow.
Wow.
And
And
you're not going to hear a lot about her. She, for multiple reasons, wants to maintain her anonymity.
I can
okay.
And I
respect that.
respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about the conversation with his mother? I mean, actually, let's go back. When he was like, my family is,
Not
I
gonna
don't,
be at the
yeah,
wedding.
they're
My
not
family
coming.
is not gonna be around. What did you think of that?
So I thought it was sad, but I
Yeah.
also, John explained all that away. My dad's an alcoholic. My parents had a terrible divorce. They don't get along. They might ruin our wedding. And I thought, well, that's really respectful, because this is a very important religious event in my
Mhm.
life.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just thought, wow, he came from, such bad beginning, and here he is at a private Catholic law school in my hometown. And I just thought it showed his, strength. And I just thought all those were positive things. Of course, I'm, just a young 23-year-old, pretty naive girl.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hard.
And
And
remember,
ooh,
it's 1980. We got married in 90, but, dating 89 and 90, no one
Right.
had a cell phone. I can't Google
Sure.
anybody. You can't, yeah.
right.
So I didn't have all the things you might have today.
So what was
Yeah.
that conversation like with her? I wonder what it was like for her to have a child that was so conniving. I mean, that seems like such a nightmare on its own.
Yeah. I mean, when I called her, I'm telling you, my knees were shaking. but I thought, what have I got to lose?
Right.
Something's not right, and I need to know what it is. And I just basically called her and said, I'm married to your son, John, and I've got some questions. And she paused. I thought, oh gosh, is she going to hang up on me? Is she going to talk? And
Mhm.
she told me everything without hesitation. I think she felt sorry for me. And she quite honestly said, I knew you would call me one day.
And you weren't like, why didn't you call me, lady? Why? Hello.
Yeah. Well, we know why she didn't call me, because if you turn on John, you will get his wrath.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. She was afraid of him.
Yeah.
So have you continued a relationship with his mother or his sisters? I know you also had conversations with them as well.
Yeah. So his parents have both passed.
Oh,
Yeah. And you're going to learn some deets about his dad passing in the podcast.
Wow.
Some
This sounds
suspicions there.
juicy. I can't wait to
Yeah,
hear all of
it
it.
is. His sisters, I do feel very comfortable with one of his sisters, but that family has a lot of history, a lot of pain, and we all deal with that differently. And
Right.
I didn't have a relationship with them when I was married, and
sure.
so I think it's too hard. It's too much. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially, I mean, it's enough to live through and to imagine the crazy twists and turns that this has taken and him becoming so notorious. I can't imagine what a burden that is
For
to be
On his
their
family.
life.
related to him, to be any
Yeah.
part of it. Yeah, to be associated with it at all. It's so painful.
Yes. And my daughters now are adult women,
Yeah.
and they're hearing about, actually new stuff as adult women rather than as little girls.
Right.
And you're going to hear from them what it's like being a product of Dirty John from them.
Well, hopefully it makes them choose and be
Stronger.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're stronger. They have I feel like we all made some real bad mistakes in our early 20s, and they know better in their early 20s.
They don't have to make those mistakes, I'm sure. And they clearly have a badass mom. I mean, I just picking up the phone and making those phone calls would have been, I don't know if I could have done it.
I know.
And you also reported him to the authorities.
Yes. In my snooping, I found narcotics in my house, the narcotics and drugs that we use in anesthesia, because I'd put him through nurse anesthesia school. So he was my colleague and my husband.
Yeah.
Did you ever
And
work together? You worked together at the same hospital at the same time?
yes, which
Okay.
created quite the problem,
It did.
because the narcotics could have come from me. I could have set him up, and that's exactly what he said.
Oh, he said that. He tried to throw
Yes.
you under the bus for
Yes.
it.
Me, the woman who put him through school, and
Of course he
Yeah.
did.
yeah. So he's willing to take out anyone who gets in his path.
Yeah.
He seems like the nicest guy until you figure him out.
So was the pivotal point in your relationship with him where he flipped? And you started to see this angry side of him was after you had reported him for the drugs?
It actually occurred the flip occurred because I contacted his family.
Okay.
That was kind of forbidden our marriage, because I want to say forbidden, but it was forbidden.
Yeah.
He painted a picture that they're going to try and infiltrate our life. Once we have children, my mom will probably show up at the front door. Don't let her in. These aren't good people. These are very selfish people. So making that phone call
Mm.
is what did it for him. And then it was that when he found that out, I had to get a protection order.
Oh my gosh. And
'Cause he's like, now you've had it.
so what was that like? So you went from thinking, I can't
Yeah.
imagine going from thinking I was with this stable man to having a protective order against him. I mean, I have been in abusive relationships, but I saw it happen over a period of time. I saw the controlling behavior escalate and escalate. It wasn't like it was just one day they were nice and the next day, there was a buildup.
Yes. Well, it was exactly like what you just said. It was a snap. It was a look in his eye that I had never seen. It was language that he was calling me that was never part of our marriage. Our marriage was very kind of, even keeled. As you can imagine, John doesn't want to blow his good
Yeah, his
deal he's
cover.
got with this
Right.
wife who's supporting him and having his children and getting him through school. So I think he intentionally kept it, kind of kept me
Even.
happy and kept it even. Yeah.
So you putting him through school. So were you working? Was he not working while he was doing school?
Yeah. Anesthesia is like a residency.
Okay.
So you can't work when you're in anesthesia training. It's, very intense 2 to 3 year training to give anesthesia. So I was working as a nurse anesthetist because I already was one, and he was full-time student. And we had moved to Tennessee. That's where he went to school. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think his long shot was? Like, was he planning on, you think he was planning on leaving you at some point? Like, do you think he saw his life in a
Like he
big
had the
picture?
forethought to think at some point he was
Yeah.
going to leave you.
I don't think this type of person thinks long-term.
Okay.
I think they're on a very short-term basis. They use you until they can't use you anymore. And if that's today, if that's a year from now, then it is what it is. And they just pivot and move on to the next.
To the
So
next.
I don't think you can think of him as having a long-term plan.
And then after you, he moved on. He moved away also. And was that, a big weight off your shoulders once he left Tennessee?
So actually, the timeline is so hard. Trust me, I sometimes lose the timeline.
Yeah.
But he went to jail in Michigan. He came back to Ohio, and then his sister came in, helped him, took him to California.
Okay.
And that's how he ended out in California, in Newport Beach. And yes, when he moved, that was huge, but he still had supervised visitation.
Still.
And yes.
And how do you do that? You have to fly your kids to see him, or he flies
No,
back to...
he left the state of Ohio, so he had to fly back.
Okay.
And he basically only did that 3 times. And his sister supervised 2 weekends. And my new husband, because I was married by then,
Mm-hmm.
had to supervise the visitation.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's nuts, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You have a good husband.
Yes. Yeah. So, I did like knowing that he was in California, because then I wasn't looking over my shoulder every second.
Right. Right. I can't
Just when he
even
was
imagine.
in town.
And what was it like for you when the Dirty John podcast came out?
So, first of all, I didn't know what a podcast was when I was being interviewed by Chris
Okay.
Goffard. He kept using that word. I'm like, I was kind of too embarrassed to say, what in the hell are you
You're like,
talking
"What?"
about? I thought he was just doing an article.
Yeah.
But I was participating because I wanted the whole story to be told truthfully. And I knew that I held so much of the information,
Right.
And so honestly, I sat on my couch and I would look over at my husband and we would just be like laughing, like, can you believe that this is on, well, you said the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the podcast was, for me, basically amazing. I thought they did a really good job.
It was.
And then when
yeah.
it was turned into a TV show, my
Right.
husband and I would look at each other like, can you actually believe this
Oh my
is
gosh.
happening?
Total Disco Biscuit played you.
Yeah,
That's
because
right.
I'm human. There's a lot about this story that's very sad and very hurtful and very menacing. But when someone has spent a great part of their life trying to destroy your life, and then they're exposed to the whole world on TV, there's something hysterical about that. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I
and
love that.
so
I love your attitude. Yeah. I imagine it's very satisfying.
yes,
I'm glad
that's
to
a
hear
great
it
word.
had that effect on you and that it wasn't, I don't know. I mean, that it didn't leave you feeling extra vulnerable or just not wanted out there for people to hear. I think it has been exposing him and it gaining so much popularity has helped so many people. There are so many con men out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I probably will be scolded by, Laura Richards does. That's something else that's different about this podcast is every episode has an analysis by Laura Richards, who is a criminal behavioral analyst and a international crime expert. And she breaks it all down for you, starting from the night we met and how John targeted me. So
That's awesome.
she doesn't like to call John a con man. He's more than a con man. And you're going to learn all about, her analysis of him in my podcast.
Good.
Great. We're going to make
Yeah.
our daughters listen.
Yes, there's so much to learn, and I'm contacted, on the weekly, and it's increasing now of so many women who are, thank me for telling my story, thank me for being open and honest, because I think there's a lot of shame associated with being involved with someone who has, controlled you, or, women don't want to share that because they just feel like they'll be judged,
That's right.
and sometimes they are. Deborah was judged a lot.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I was listening and even watching, and you see the guy, he brings her the smoothies every day and in the morning, and I'm like, oh my God, if my husband would bring me a smoothie every day in the morning, I might stay with
I
him
would
forever
love it
too.
if my husband would just put his cup in the dishwasher.
Seriously. Oh my God.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. When they say love is blind, and love feels really good when someone's giving you all their attention, that feels really good.
Yeah.
So you see how women get sucked in. Mhm.
So what kind of support group did you have around you then and now? Did you have a lot of family, and were they all as shocked as you,
Oh
I
yeah, that's a good
imagine?
question.
Yes. So yes, I had my family. I have a sister and my parents who were all fooled and very much hurt by him as well. No one wants to see their daughter or sister go through this, right? And I also had, the support of, my work people. Was working in a big hospital, and I had the love and support of all those people. And I
And so
stayed in
you
contact.
kind of mentioned they were kind of on to him, that there was some shady behavior going on.
Yeah, so throughout my time with John, there were people who were, their radars were ding, 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 but a lot of them didn't have like hard evidence. And so what do you do with that? Just that thought or that radar or that gut feeling about your friend's marriage? I mean, you don't just go in there and break up their marriage. You better have some real evidence, right?
Right.
So a lot of people didn't say anything, but weren't surprised when it all blew up.
Right.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how did you find out that he had been killed?
Ooh, yeah. A day I'll never forget, right? And I talk about that in the podcast, but basically his sister emailed me. And so I was at work, so all I saw was like the notification, and the subject matter said John was killed. And I immediately started like shaking. And I don't know if I shake where you can see it, but inside my body was like, convulsing. But I didn't know, what does this killing mean, And so I basically that day found out what had happened. And I mean, you can imagine my jaw was on the desk because I'm like taking notes. This girl, and she stabbed him in the eye, and they're taking him off life support because he actually was stabbed on a Saturday. No one called me till Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I think part of that was because really the next of kin next to his wife, who didn't want to pull the plug, was Emily.
Yeah, your daughter.
And so we had a discussion that, certainly Emily shouldn't be the one to be burdened with that decision. So his sister did it, who is a nurse.
Oh, well, that was good.
Okay. Well, for one, email is an interesting choice of communication, considering the subject. I would think maybe
He
a
didn't
phone
want to call
call
you. Like maybe a phone call.
would be warranted.
I don't know.
Just had to get that off my chest.
Yeah.
But wow. And so, I mean, what kind of effect did that have on you and your daughters? Was there any sense of relief, or, I mean, they still look at him as a father figure? I mean, did they? How did they
Yeah,
deal with
so
that?
my children are going to tell you exactly that in the podcast. I don't think I should reveal exactly their reactions because you're going to hear from them for the first time.
Okay, that's
Um,
great.
yeah.
I imagine either way, it's devastating.
Yes. Yeah. So
Um,
my initial reaction,
yeah.
honestly, was my children. I
Mhm.
wasn't even really thinking about, this is over for John or this is over for me. My immediate thoughts went to my children and how am I going to tell them this? And, in the
Yeah.
podcast, when we hear from them, there are things that my children really didn't share for me about, when he was in California and all these long years where they didn't see him, that they missed him and that they kind of fantasized about a relationship with him. And that's why all of this coming out has been good, because now they understand why their father wasn't in their life. And it wasn't because they didn't deserve of love from their father. They understand who he was now, and that it wasn't about them. Because
Yeah.
children usually do think it has something to
Oh,
do with
that is,
them.
yeah, that is so healing. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Is there anything else that you would like to tell us, Tania? You think that we need to know?
Well, I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but there are going to be some shocking details about confessions that John makes concerning suspicions around the deaths of his brother and his father.
And
Um,
let me hear when his father died and when his brother died, he was still alive, I'm assuming.
yes, his dad died in 97 when John was in anesthesia school,
Okay.
and his brother died in, I think it was during our separation.
Okay. So you were
So
married.
late
John had been
90s.
mailing narcotics to his brother.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Um,
that's
I
not going
don't
to
know
go
why
well.
that kind of surprises me,
that
though. It
doesn't go
kind of
well.
surprises me that he would, I don't know. It's not a nice thing to do, but it sort of is that he was like sending his brother drugs. Like it surprises me that he had a connection. I don't imagine him having any real
Oh, connections with
yeah,
people.
genuine connections with people.
Well, I think my interpretation of that is John wanted to be a big shot to his family. He'd been telling his
Oh, that
family
makes
he was a
sense.
physician for a long time. And so for him to have something that his brother wanted or needed, I think made him, feel like big man on campus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And were they close? Was John ever close with his family? I mean, he had to have gone through high school with his siblings and his mom and dad or his mom. Um,
Yeah.
do they
So all I know is that the children thought they had a pretty normal life, although behind the scenes they did not.
Mhm.
And that a lot of John's behavior started when the mom decided to leave the family, which actually her leaving had a lot to do with the father's behavior. But he, basically held his mom to account for that. And that may have led to why he had such a hate for women.
Okay, that makes sense.
Which,
We
mhm.
do a lot of cases
And we see that a
where
lot.
the men they have like this thing with their mom and it creates them hating women in the future and
Yeah.
being abusive or um even killing them.
It's
Mhm.
interesting, right? That like element of psychology. Like when girls have daddy issues, we go out and sleep with too many people, right? And we don't kill them.
Yes. Right. Right.
Mostly.
Mostly.
Maybe
Mostly we
just
don't
me
kill
and
them.
you, Gretchen.
I mean, spoken from two people who have daddy issues, so we could say that. But
Doesn't mean you haven't thought about it. You just don't
Uh,
do it.
well,
true.
that's maybe true. Maybe true.
So I want to hear good stuff. What is your life like now? So you have the new husband. Tell us he's amazing
Yeah, he is amazing.
or not, or like he's normal like ours. You could tell us that too.
Oh, well, he's normal, but he's also amazing. I mean, I think part of the reason I'm safe and alive talking to you today is because there was a very strong protector in my life.
That's great.
And John didn't usually have to go through a man to get to the women. That usually sent him on his way.
Mm-hmm.
And so my husband, we got married in 2003. So we've been married 17 years, going on 18, right?
Oh.
And
Yep.
he's also a nurse anesthetist, because I stopped meeting guys in the bar, which is where I met John. But I'll preface this by saying I had never been picked up in my life ever, before or after. But anyways, so I met Augie at work.
Good.
Aw.
Yeah. And he's been basically the only real father my children have known. And he's been a fabulous example of how a man should treat a woman.
Oh,
Great.
that's great.
Yeah.
Love that. And are you still living in Ohio?
No, I moved to Atlanta, outside of Atlanta,
Okay.
in 2007 to be, my one sister lives here.
Great.
And are you still a practicing nurse anesthetist?
I'm where I work today. These are my nip grubs. Yes. Yeah, I've been CRNA for 30 years.
And does
Oh.
anybody recognize you when you go in? They're like, they're ready to go under, and then they're
Where do
like,
I know
I
you
know
from?"
you.
No, nobody really recognized me. There's occasionally been some funny moments at work where it's just come up. A patient has brought it up, because we were an anesthesia couple, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And they usually are just beside themselves to know that I work there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine.
And how did you come up with this? How did the idea of you doing a podcast and
Yeah.
and taking the deep dive, how did that come up?
Well, even before John died, everyone who I even told any part of the story told any part of the story to said, Tania, you should write a book. I've been hearing that for over 20 years. And so I actually went down that path with a ghostwriter, and it's just more difficult than you think it's going to be.
Mhm.
And it really just didn't get very far. But I had met Laura Richards at the premiere of Dirty John, and she introduced me to Aliza Rosen, who's with AYR Media, or she is AYR Media. And
Yep.
so she was wanting to do some true crime stories, and she remembered that I was interested in a book, so she called me up.
Perfect.
Perfect. And so I assume you've met, like Deborah and Tara and
Oh yeah.
what was that?
Yes.
We've met them. What was that like?
Mhm.
Oh, you have?
Mhm.
Yeah, we did.
Were they
Crime
on your
Con.
show?
They were
Crime
not
Con.
on Crime
Oh,
Con,
Crime
which
Con, yeah.
I'm sure you will be at this next year.
You think?
I think so. They're going to want you there for sure.
Yeah, they are.
It's in Las Vegas, in a year from now. So
May
Oh,
2022.
I don't know what's happening with my computer here. It's wanting to do some things. Yeah, so I met them, there was a lot of PR for, the Dirty John Bravo and Dateline. We were on Dateline. And so we spent a little time with them in New York, and we went to the premiere together, and they're delightful people. They're very gracious to us. They love our family. And, Tara's our hero. She's
I
not just
know.
my hero. She is the hero of all the women in John's future that, she saved from him.
And
Yeah.
she's a hero for so many people that just would back down in a certain situation, whether it is, you're some psycho mom's boyfriend that wants to kill you, but even just women in general that are a little weak, and never think that they could fight back from somebody. And so
Yeah.
it's pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
I mean, the message is be ruthless.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fight for your life.
Right.
Yeah.
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 And watch that zombie show that she watched.
Yeah. Eyeball.
Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Of course,
always
she's bearing the brunt of that. It's not just that, yay, he's dead, she killed him, and it's over. There's a lifelong of healing for her.
I think so.
Um,
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
But really, she truly is a hero. Well, we really enjoy talking to you, and we want all of our listeners, I'm sure they will all love. This is an 8-part series, and it's called The First Wife. John Meehan's Reign of Terror. Everybody can find it that listens to us because you guys know how to listen to a podcast.
Already.
And it's brought to you by AYR Media and Audible Inc.
Yeah, let's all listen and we'll talk about it in our Facebook group.
We will. That'll be a fun one.
That'll be fun. We love listening to stuff.
Yeah. So
virtually together.
Virtually. All
With our
Once
listeners.
you start, you won't be able to stop, I promise.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can't
I
wait.
know. Yes, it'll be one. I usually like to binge 8-part series in one day. It's like my 8-hour work day.
Yeah. I'm driving to Lake Tahoe with my children.
Oh,
And
just put the
I do
earbud in.
not want to listen to SpongeBob. So
It's perfect.
I can't wait.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Tania. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, girls, so much.
All right. Okay, so that's a WAP.
That's a whop.
That was Tania. You guys all heard her. Now you're going to go listen to the podcast for the next 8 hours. So
You're going to have to because she's a big tease. She didn't give us, she didn't spill the tea.
She didn't spill all the tea. We were kind
She
of
gave us
trying.
she spilled the drops.
She's like, you have to listen.
You have to listen.
Oh,
Fair enough.
shit.
We're all gonna listen, Tania.
You know what? We should have listened beforehand, and then we would have known the answers.
No, we're gonna listen now.
I know we
Still
are because
super
I need
interesting. I mean, I
need to know. I need to know.
I am really interested to hear about the effect that it had on her daughters and what
Me
her
too.
daughter's point of view is. And
Yeah. Moi aussi.
yeah.
My bra's falling off. You could see it on YouTube. Like, you like
I
my
like
shirt? Let me show you my shirt. Oh shoot.
Tab.
Oh my God. Sorry. I'm really fucking this shit up around here. It's a cute shirt though, right?
It's so cute.
It's too hot. It's like one of those shirts that's way too hot to wear in the summer, but I thought for the podcast, since she didn't know who was who, I would, I'd be Tab.
Identify yourself.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right, you disco biscuit and our disco biscuits that listen to us and our disco dudes.
Can I say one thing actually?
Yes. Please.
I just got on the scale today and saw a very scary number. I have a lot of dieting plans after I get back from Lake Tahoe. But somebody just wrote on our Housewives of True Crime on keto, on crack, I mean keto, you know, the dieting page.
Yeah.
They were like pressuring themselves to lose weight. They had 39 days before Cabo.
Right.
And this is what I wanted to say, but I didn't say it because I didn't think it would translate well. Listen, this has been like, how they're like hot girl summer? This has been my first like fat girl summer. This summer, I decided, you know what? I'm just going to buy a black one piece and I'm not going to give a fuck. I'm going to enjoy myself and I'm not going to get all caught up on what I look like. And you know what? I had a great summer. So what I'm saying, girlfriend, is yes, I encourage you, eat healthy, do your best. But if you don't, because 40 days isn't like that long, that far away.
Right.
Go
so
out
what
and
you're saying,
go out and get yourself a black one piece and don't give a fuck. Because I bet you're still rocking it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, good job.
What? Confidence is hot.
It is hot.
Yeah.
Trust me, there was a lot of people in Vegas with a lot of confidence. And I, unfortunately, am not one of those people. I wish I was, man. But I like your attitude.
No, you don't want to be wearing nakedness.
Well, sometimes I would like to think I could.
Okay.
I don't know.
Fair enough.
So follow us on Housewives of True Crime group to talk all about this interview and let us know what you think about the podcast after you listen to the 8-part series. Also, if you want more of us, Housewives of True Crime on Patreon. It's patreon.com/Housewives of True Crime. And we also are on Instagram, and we are on YouTube at HWTC. So subscribe there. Thanks, guys. Clink, clink.
Clink, clink.